In exercise 2, you're going to have an opportunity to work with the Hebrew vowels and to learn them through repetition. It is most important that you make the connection between the symbol and the sound, but we want you to get used to the Hebrew names, and rather than having you memorize them, we're going to have you identify them over and over again so that you become familiar with them. In your exercise, you're going to see the words broken down into columns as illustrated here. In example 1, you'll notice that the word is repeated twice with a box around 2 different segments. We do this so that each row of the text focuses in on only one segment. What you will be doing is, the first thing you will do is to look and see whether or not there is any form of dot. Remember that we have dagesh lene, the begad kafat dot, never follows a vowel. Dagesh forte, doubling dot, always follows a vowel. And the mapik or H dot that is only used in final he. So as we look at example number 1, you'll notice that in 1a, where we're focusing in on the dalet has a dot. It is not preceded by a vowel. This has to be a begad kafat dot or a dagesh lene. In example 1b, dealing with the second half of the word, the bait is a begad kafat letter, so we might expect to find a dot, but there are no dots here, so we can leave this one blank. We then want to identify the name of the vowel or vowel notation that is in each frame. So in 1a, under the dalet, we find the 2 vertical dots that represent the schwa. So you'd write in the word schwa. In the second syllable, in the second portion of the word, we have an I underneath this particular bait, followed by a yod that has no vowel notations of its own. So we have to identify this vowel as hirik yod. That's important because remember, hirik is short I, hirik yod is long I. So that makes a difference when we get to the third column and you identify the sound. Now, when we identify the sound, we have to ask ourselves, what are we going to hear? With most vowels, the sound is going to be designated by the vowel sound itself. But with schwa, remember, we have to determine whether we're transitioning into the rest of the word or whether the schwa is finishing off what we have already done. And as we learned, at the beginning of a word, a schwa is always vocal. You always hear something because you're moving from the initial consonant into the next part of the word. So this schwa is going to produce an abrupt sound. It is going to be a vocal schwa. With the second part of the word, you're going to hear a long I sound. Once you've finished identifying how this is broken up in terms of its sounds, you can practice trying to say the words. So in this case, devir, devir. I've got a very abrupt transition between the dalet and the bait. In the same way, in the second example, we have a word, only in this case, there are 3 vowel notations in the word. So again, it's been broken up into each segment. In none of these do we have any dots. So we can leave the first column blank. In the second column, the first vowel notation is a short A or patach. So we write in the name of the Hebrew vowel, patach, so that we become familiar with it. The second notation is a composite schwa. So it's still a schwa, but we're going to designate that it is the one that is accompanied with a vowel, You don't have to specify which vowel it is at this point, just identify it as a composite schwa. The third vowel is a comets. Okay? Comets. So we write that in. And then we move to the last column, and again, we pronounce this according to the sound of each of those letters. So patach is a short A. The composite schwa also happens to have a short A notation with it. So this is going to be a very abrupt A sound. And then in the last portion of the word, we've got the comets, which is a long A. So if I were to pronounce this word, I would pronounce ma'akal, ma'akal. So identify the dots, identify the names of the vowel notations, identify the sound as a means of getting us ready for being able to read Hebrew aloud. As you do this, keep in mind a couple of things. First of all, until we tell you the distinction between short O and long A, treat every comets as long A. That is the most common representation of comets. If there is a short O in this exercise, it will be filled in for you so that it is clearly identified. But you can plan on it being a long A. Also, check your exercises against the key. Throughout the semester, you're going to learn the most by interacting with the information before we actually get a chance to dialogue about it in the forums and in your emails. So check yourself against the key, see what you missed, and always when you check yourself, don't just mark it right or wrong and correct it, but actually include some kind of a notation as to what you should or should not have recognized in order to make the differentiation between those things. That will help you tremendously in terms of your progress.